Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Doing a little bit of a different update video today in that it's not necessarily an update on the channel, but more kind of like a general advice from myself, a content creator in the civilization sphere now, or at least I find myself to be in the civilization sphere now. Just to give some general advice on making applications, and then also some general advice for up and coming content creators because I have had a lot of people reach out to me just asking for my 2 cents on different matters. Now, why exactly they would do that, I'm actually not all too sure, but I'm here to just kind of clear the air and answer some of the more common questions that I get about my stuff. So, without further ado, here we go. And also, there will be chapters in the description if you want to skip around, if there's a certain section you're after, or if you just simply don't care enough, that's fine as well. Nobody's forcing you to be here, but I appreciate you being here nonetheless. So, starting off, our first topic is my personal advice on how to get into a civilization event. The way that Rift events works with their applications is you can either have a written application or you can have a video application. In my humble opinion, because of all the eyes that are now suddenly on this event right now and Rift events now, I would highly advise that you do a video application instead of a written application. Simply because a video is much, much, much more potent, I believe, and it is easier for the team to discover like your personality. They'll be able to figure out if like you can gel with other people, or I guess that isn't necessarily a requirement, but just kind of get a better base of like your vibes as opposed to like seeing words on the paper, you know? Just to treat you guys, or not really to treat you guys, just to act as an extra resource for you. I actually linked my tropical video application in the description below. Now, granted, well, first of all, obviously, as you can probably tell, I got in with my application. But going forward, there's going to be a lot of competition. As it stands, my video will be a month old exactly today. And tomorrow, at the time that this is posted, Ruinous Sands applications will open. So because of that, I think it's important to just kind of take into consideration all the different aspects that you could use in like a video. Like, how can I portray my personality? How can I say like, ooh, this is the role that I want to play, and is this kind of a role that maybe the Rift team wants to see, perhaps, or do you maybe want to like reevaluate what you would actually do? Basically, just kind of basing off like vibes alone, right? In terms of what to include in a video app, I mean, you can see mine in the description below. It's a little bit crude. It's just a 5 hour, it's just a 5 minute video recording of me running around in survival Minecraft and not really doing too much of anything. And my mic actually only recorded in the left ear as well, but remarkably, I was still able to get in. In terms of video applications, is the team going to expect like the next coming of Christ in the terms of video editing, even with all these other people? No. But if you have those skills, it might be worth it to show them off to the team, you know? Now they're probably not going to accept you, even if you have like all these flashy edits, but you know, even then you're just kind of lame. Let's just call it how it is. If you're a bit lame, you're not gonna get in, and then you know that's just how things go. But it'll definitely be worth it to kind of show off any kind of skills you have there as well. But then again, don't get discouraged if like you don't have any editing experience at all. Like for example, there's around 4,500 people who currently like clicked interested in the upcoming Ruinous Sands event on the Discord. Maybe half of those people are going to be able to apply. Maybe a quarter of those people are going to do an application, and maybe a quarter of those people are going to do a video application, and maybe a quarter of those people are going to put more than 2 minutes of effort into their video application. I figure it's like if you put in the effort, you're probably going to get in. You know, don't get discouraged by the amount of people. Just do your own thing, and chances are you probably have a pretty good shot. In all honesty, you know, just main thing, make sure your vibes are in check. Make sure that like ask yourself, would I want to play with this person in the next event? And if the answer is yes, then you know I think you have a pretty good shot. By the way, in case you haven't noticed, I'm currently at the site of Fit. Granted, this is the unedited world, so Fit does not yet exist in this lifetime. But what was once lost media is now found in the terms of Vasey actually going into his computer and sending this file over to me. So shout out to Vasey. Anyways, so my second section here goes out to all the content creators and all the people who maybe want to start becoming a content creator in terms of like civilization events. So going into the event, once you're accepted, I would recommend bringing in exactly 3, or rather 2 mods. Flashback and a good shader mod. And that's it. You really don't need anything else. Flashback is absolutely fantastic. I love Flashback to death. And I think, as a content creator, more people should be taking advantage of Flashback, because I can record myself doing legitimately absolutely nothing, and then I can go back to that file and be like, make literally the next, Martin Scorsese film with the way that like I'm placing all these shots. It is such an untapped market in terms of Minecraft videos that it's like I'm so surprised that more people don't do it. Now, is it a grueling process? Yes. Yes, it is. But you're going to want to have a flashback file if you think that maybe you want to get a cool shot of that thing that you're doing in that current moment later on, if that makes any remote sense. Basically, you have access to anything that you did during that game, and you're able to get any single imaginable camera shot. It is a fantastic resource, and I would highly recommend you guys learning it. Alright, and my next thing I have here is basically just take it in stride. Don't force things. Don't run around trying to make people do things for your video. Don't force them to do things in order to change their perspective or whatever. Just let things happen as it happened, for me, the Emerald Coast crew, I wanted to start all alone and kind of do my own thing. And then they decided that, they wanted to be a part of my life, for the lack of a better term. And you know what? I think that's completely okay. I took it in stride and I worked with what I had. Even with all the silly things that happened during the event itself. Everything just kind of happened the way that it happened. I didn't want to force anything. What on earth? What was that? Oh. Anyways, and you're going to appreciate it later on. I feel like in the post-production process, you're definitely going to appreciate yourself kind of going with the flow and not really trying to get hung up in too many things. Just let things happen as they happen, and then everything will work out in the end. Alright. Up next is probably the biggest and chunkiest section. That would be the post-production aspect of making a Civilization video. So, first and foremost, I think it's important for me to go over my personal workflow when I was working on the Tropical Civ video. Basically, I started off, obviously I played in the event, and I had 14 hours of footage to work with. 14 hours of footage is nothing to squeeze at, right? So instead, what I did was I concurrently worked on my script and also put down different markers via Premiere on all the footage. Basically, what this did was I was able to go back and I was able to place a marker even on something that maybe I could use. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to use this in the future. But now I know that when I'm actually putting together the video itself, if there's not a marker on that section, it's safe to discard. And by doing so, it's easier to save time in the long term, if that makes sense, right? Because now when I'm putting stuff together, I'm not willy-nilly skipping over a lot of stuff that could have potentially been important or maybe even funny, perhaps. Instead, I'm seeing all of that, and then in the moment, I'm deciding if I want to either cut it or keep it, right? I hope that makes a little bit of sense, right? Basically, just go through all the footage, or what I did was go through all the footage, write the script as I was going through the footage, and put markers on things I could come back to when making the final cut that could potentially be interesting, and then not marking down anything that is 100% skippable. Alright, I hope that's a little bit of a better explanation. So, my advice when making a Minecraft Civilization video. Cue the Captain America backwards chair image. So you want to make a Minecraft Civilization video, pretty much. Well, do I have the advice for you here? A big part of my kind of experience on the platform is keep it authentic, I don't want to gas things up for things that I'm not personally gassed up about, I don't want to fake any kinds of emotions. And I don't want to kind of deceive the viewer in a way of me feeling a certain way when I didn't really even feel that way at all to begin with. Now, granted, does that have the possibility of not generating a lot of views? Maybe, because you're not kind of gassing yourself up. Sure, maybe. But I think, like personally, I think it's more important to kind of stay true to whatever happens, happens. I'm going to explain the things that went wrong, and then you're either going to like it or you're going to not like it. And there's nothing more I can do about that, right? Like you can see it in my previous videos, right? Like my repo video, like it was supposed to end with us beating the challenge, and then we lost on day 10, you know? Or like one of my various Lethal Company casino videos, where it was supposed to culminate with me, Joe, and Ryan going to the casino and actually winning. And bro was just simping over a girl, and the other bro was in the middle of playing Roblox Deep Woken, and we just could not get a session together. So that's what I did. I clarified at the end that's what happened. And I feel like that's more important to respect you guys, the viewers, instead of kind of like gassing up any kind of like things that maybe didn't happen, right? Now, in terms of actually putting the thing together and like making your script, my biggest piece of advice is try and give a bit of a reason as to why you do things. Even if you don't necessarily have a reason on why you're doing those exact things, try and, make one up in the postscript. Because if you don't, your video is going to be a lot of like, oh, first I went to X, and then I went to Y, and then I went to Z, and then I went to A, and then I went to B. Basically just like a whole grocery list of things that you did in a row without kind of giving a reason as to why you were even doing those to begin with. And it's that kind of comes off as more as like okay, this guy's doing these things, but I'm not really sure why he's doing those things, right? And it's not necessarily a very thought-provoking thing. Well, while instead you could be like, oh, I wanted to go here because there's a possibility of this happening, so that's why I went there. And here's what happens. Stuff like that. Kind of like helping flow together a story and making it all work. My next point is, believe me, brother, there's going to be a lot of footage. Don't be afraid to cut things. You don't need to include every single conversation. I had an old VidTech teacher back in high school, and his whole mantra was take a lot and use a little. There were plenty of different bits and conversation pieces that I wish I could have included. Probably one of the funniest parts in the Tropical Civ for me, I didn't even include because I was in the middle of doing a travel montage. The first initial flower town to Volcano. I remember we were climbing on one of those mountains, and it's like, Basty to me was like, yeah, I really wanted to do a certain character, but then the mods didn't really allow it. So I was like, what kind of character do you want to play? He was like, oh yeah, I wanted to be a serial killer, just start killing people at random. I was like, bro, really? And like, as much as it pained me, it just didn't make sense to keep it in there, A lot of, another big piece of advice would be use what you deem is necessary. Kind of like a Chekhov's gun, For those of you who aren't aware, Chekhov's gun is kind of like the idea of something is introduced, like in a movie or a film or a TV show, and it's going to be used. Like Chekhov's gun itself being like, there's a gun over the mantle on the fireplace, and in Act 3, that gun is finally used. And like it was established to the viewer that the gun's existence, all the way back in Act 1, is now finally being used. So basically, it kind of came all the way back to that gun. Like, for example, I kept in Kolfir when I passed him on the way to the Enchanted Lake for the first time, because bro was like a main character, right? I kept in Tuftania and, the losses that they endured because I was able to include that in the monologue at the end to kind of give a reason as to why I went to the volcano for the last time. It's like, it's a lot of kind of taking into consideration, okay, there's this thing that happens. Will this character appear again? Or is this kind of like a loose plot point that doesn't necessarily add anything in the long run, Like, for all intents and purposes, my fall on day 3, into the sand, into that pit, I could have technically kept that out really because it didn't necessarily matter because, I still lived. But I wanted to cue that in at the end to kind of bring back the luck stat, right? Like I was always talking about like the luck of my hat and exactly what that was, and I was able to tie all that in the long run in the very end. And all of that just kind of comes with scripting, honestly. Like making your footage, it's like when you're making like your script, you're not going to really understand like what's going to be important, what isn't. You're only going to get a grasp for that at the end. So that's why I think making the script first is important before you start pulling together your final draft. And of course, my last bit here is just have fun, guys. You know, I'm so excited to see like all these people that are reaching out to me, like asking for, you know, a schmuck like me, his advice on what to do in these civilization events, and like kind of talking about my own process. You know, it's really an honor. But the truth is, you know, person to person, there's not anything different between me and you, you know? Like I'm a college graduate. I graduated back in May, and I've been using Premiere Pro since sophomore year of high school. I have used that stupid program for a long while, and there's no reason that you guys can't also pick up an editing program and start learning that for upwards of five or so years, right? Like the only difference between, you know, you and me is just because I was the guy who had the certain flavor of autism that let me sit at a desk and kind of learn Premiere and OBS and kind of learning how the scripts. Truth be told, it's like you guys could make the next 2 million banger. It's completely in your hands. And I'm always a firm believer in if you make something and you're truly proud of it, then it's going to do well. It's going to be seen by the right people, and you're going to get the credit that you deserve. And the only thing you can do is just keep on making things. I've been doing this for 2.5 years and some change, and you know, obviously I haven't seen quite the success that I have recently this past month, but you know, it's just a testament to keep going. You know, nobody's here to stop you. Just keep posting things. Not to sound like Pirate Software right now, because that guy's a fraud, but really, keep making videos and keep doing it, and people will watch. And I'll watch too, you know. I'll watch too. But anyways, fellas, it has been an absolute honor to fish here in the great tropical Civ. Yeah, I don't really have too much to add. Tap into my Discord, tap into the Rift Events Discord, and I hope to see you guys in the sandy abyss that is Ruinous Sands. Alrighty, y'all. Take it easy. Take it easy. Goodbye, y'all. Goodbye, y'all. Goodbye, y'all. Goodbye.